You're listening to The Other 50%, a history of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where I talk to successful women in entertainment and hear their stories. In this episode, I got to speak with Jennie Yamaki about her career as a producer and production executive. Her first job out of grad school was, get this, Napoleon Dynamite. She's worked on a lot of films and has also done a lot of work in the digital space. At the time of this interview, she was vice president of production for Lionsgate's digital division. Things may have changed since then, but stay tuned. You can find us at theother50%.com to see bios, photos, the blog, the merchandise. You can find us on iTunes, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the places, and we are also now on Stitcher. If you like this podcast, please listen, make a review, share it with your friends. And I have another podcast called The Other 50%, a history of tech. You can also find it on iTunes, Stitcher, all the places you get your podcasts. That is where I talk to successful women in tech and hear their stories. Okay, here's Jennie. What is your job?
I am the VP of Physical Production at Lionsgate's Digital Studios division.
I didn't know Lionsgate had a digital studios division.
Yeah, so it's a relatively new group that started, I think, about like a year and a half ago now, so probably the beginning of 2016.
So in your digital division at Lionsgate, where are you distributing?
We are looking at online distribution. Lionsgate currently doesn't have its own SVOD platform, so looking to find digital distribution through Netflix, Amazon, Go90, iTunes.
All the places.
All the places.
What does SVOD stand for?
Subscription video on demand.
Oh, thank you very much.
I think I got that right.
For video on demand.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have had a long journey to get there. This isn't your first job.
No.
What did you start out doing?
I started out, I guess my first job.
Yes, let's hear it.
In the business I was an intern in the story department at New Regency.
Oh.
But through that and through grad school, realized that development definitely was not my cup of tea, and decided production was probably better suited for me.
What did you go to grad school for?
I went to USC's Peter Stark producing program.
Oh. And then you're like, this is my jam.
Well, so the internship was a part of the Stark program, so it was in between the first and second year. So with what I learned at school and then also with the internship, I realized development wasn't to my liking, and I really liked production better. So I guess after the story department at New Regency, I was a second assistant at Fox Searchlight, and then...
Second assistant what?
Second assistant to Peter Rice.
Oh, so in the office.
In the office, yeah.
Okay.
And then after graduating from Stark, ended up working with a couple of classmates of mine who are in the program ahead of me by about a year, and we went off to shoot a feature-length movie together for the first time in Idaho, and that ended up being Napoleon Dynamite.
What?
Yeah.
You shot that little thing?
Yeah. But it wasn't little thing then, so it was just this little movie that we were all doing together in Idaho.
You were like, let's go put on a show.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, how great.
Yeah. So that was that experience.
So did that launch you?
No, it's interesting because I think I realized after Napoleon hit Sundance and became a unexpected hit that the people that really benefit for a movie, a success like that, really are more like the directors and the actors. Mm. And with production's kind of like a trade school. And so you kind of have to learn as you go and develop credibility over time. And so there's no sort of flash in the pan way to get ahead. But it was a good calling card because a lot of people obviously recognized the title on my resume. So
that's a good first job out of school.
Yes.
Okay, so then did you work your way through production?
Yeah, so I ended up freelancing a little bit, line producing low budget projects, and then ended up as an assistant to Kelly Conop at Mandate Pictures.
Oh, we've heard of her.
Yeah, I believe.
Episode, I don't remember the number.
So I was with Mandate and worked with Kelly for about 6 years.
And you did a bunch of good films while you were there.
Yeah, we worked on a lot of great projects.
For example?
When I started there, the first project, it was already sort of in prep, called Stranger Than Fiction. Mm-hmm. And then over the years, we worked on things like Juno, Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium.
Whip It.
Whip It. Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. I should have remembered that.
Here, let me tell you.
Yes,
It was Whip It. And that Steve Carell movie. What was that?
Oh, I think that was after I might have already left.
Okay, sorry. I'm jumping ahead. Yeah, weird. I know your resume.
I know. It's because you already interviewed Kelly. So I was there for a number of years, and then went back to freelancing, and
yeah, my cat is walking across the table right now because that's how we roll.
But he's super cute.
Yeah, let's pretend I don't let the cat on the table.
Yeah, well, why not? You can't
so
not
gross.
You can't not let the cat on the table.
I know. What am I gonna do? Construct a fence around the table?
Yeah, they all do that.
Okay, so after Mandate,
yeah,
you
so I
went
was freelancing, and then I ended up unexpectedly working in new media.
You were at PopSugar,
right?
Was there something before that?
Before PopSugar, when YouTube was giving investing, I should say.
Oh, that year when YouTube gave everyone $5 million?
Yes. So I was working for one of the startup channels, one of the YouTube premium channels. John Chu was executive producing a dance channel that he started called D Studio. And so I was there for about a year working on a bunch of the different series that they were trying to launch.
How'd that go?
It was really an exciting experience because it was sort of a new frontier in terms of new media. At least that's how I looked at it, because it was my first sort of foray into that space.
Wasn't that the year everyone was trying to, how do we make money at this?
Yes. That was the year, and I feel like people are still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I was going to say, no one figured it out.
But yeah, it was really interesting to be at a channel from the ground up and seeing sort of the challenges to build a channel from scratch and to build an audience and to develop content and to release programming on a nascent channel. So
it's like you're at a tech startup and a production company.
Yes.
All at the same time.
Yeah.
How was the culture there?
You know, it was great because it was a group of friends and people and peers just excited to be making good content. So oddly enough, a lot of those people ended up being, I kind of got there through someone I had known for years from the START program, actually, Hugh Ho, who was also an executive producer there, and ended up working with other people from USC. Mm-hmm. And come
that
to find
USC mafia is a real thing.
Yeah, it kind of is, but sort of in an unexpected way, because some of those people had actually gone to school with John, and come to find out some of those people I actually knew through other people, and so it was kind of a nice environment because everyone was kind of working, like I said, together to build something from the ground up. So
yeah. Okay, so how'd that channel do?
It did okay. When YouTube realized that they weren't going to be investing again in another round of funding, I think they only decided to give a little bit of funding to a handful of channels. Mm-hmm. It's still up on YouTube now, but I don't believe that they're putting out new content anymore.
Do you remember what they thought the revenue was going to come from?
You know, I wasn't part, so the deal that was made with YouTube predated my involvement with the channel, and I'm not really sure how YouTube thought they were going to make revenue other than ads. Mm-hmm. And I think it started out, from my understanding was that it started out being YouTube's goal was to make premium content, meaning content to rival television. Mm-hmm. But as the year progressed, it seemed like the metrics for success were changing. And as YouTube was figuring out what that looked like, that sort of that goalpost kept shifting a little bit.
Yeah. The startup of it all.
Yes.
Let's figure it out. Because it seems like it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, but it's either you have some funny little video that goes viral and has 10 million views and you make money off of that, or you create programming that goes on Hulu, Netflix, Amazon. They seem to have been the winners in this race. Like, is there like Awesomeness TV, I guess, is in the middle of that?
I mean, I think it's shifting a bit. I am also unclear as to necessarily how people can monetize their content. I mean, I kind of look at the Hulus and the Awesomeness TVs, the Amazons and the Netflix of the world, maybe not Awesomeness, but the Netflix and the Amazons of it all as more just as another platform for distribution akin to TV, because they're definitely tapping into the online marketplace, but the content they're creating is akin to TV feature film quality.
Same talent,
content.
Same budget, same process.
Exactly. But there's still a market I feel like that's being developed to me, like the true new media space of short form content vis-a-vis, YouTube, that YouTube space, and
like web series that are 2-3 minutes.
Yes.
Episodes.
Shorter content, like the content that I was working on when I was at PopSugar, and that space is still hard to monetize. I feel like advertisers and brands are putting more of their advertising dollars in that space, and less maybe on the traditional commercials.
Like more branded content?
More branded
like
content.
Like all those Kleenex videos that make us cry?
Yes. Or the DIY videos showcasing XYZ type product, like those types of things.
So it's really just a lot better advertising.
Yeah. A lot more targeted, I would think, and they're specific about like what products they want to show people, and they can do probably a video series or banner ads and things like that, as opposed to just a straight up TV commercial.
Yeah. It also seems like a great place for filmmakers just trying to practice their craft and get it out in the world, doing it on their own. It seems really accessible.
Yeah, I think that's what's great about sort of digital technology. It definitely is more accessible to more people to be able to create content in their own voice. But I think the challenging thing is still how do you monetize it and make a business out of it, as opposed to just creating a lot of content.
Yeah, I wonder if the people doing that are going in with the expectation of monetizing it, or if it's their calling card.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there are people who are definitely doing it to hone their craft, and that's what makes it...
That's the phrase I was looking for, hone their craft.
Now that, you can just pick up your iPhone and go off and shoot something. But I think there's still another group of people, obviously, who are trying to figure out how to make a business out of it.
Yeah. Because on the one hand, you can build your audience to a point where you do get a Netflix show, or you do get an HBO series.
Right.
People have proven that model.
That's true.
Which is pretty great.
And that's great. I think it's still hard to... If you are self-distributing your own content, how are you reaching an audience? How are you cutting through the noise? How are you competing with all the content that's on Netflix or Amazon, or the free content that's on YouTube?
It does make you a unicorn when you can do it.
Right.
Like we can name the people on one hand.
Yes.
Who have been able to do that.
So it's really also a big part of it to me is marketing, and how do you strategize about getting eyeballs on your content.
What are your thoughts about how to do that? Do you have a position?
If I did, I'd be making a lot of money right now.
Okay, touche. Okay, so after D Studio.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
After D Studio, I was freelancing for a little bit and then ended up at PopSugar. And after PopSugar was at Mattel.
Well, that was very quick. Can you talk about PopSugar for a minute? That's a lifestyle.
PopSugar is a women's lifestyle company. Started off editorial content, blogs, and has since grown to encompass that and so much more, including video content.
So what was your job there?
So I was a line producer and then ended up becoming head of physical production there.
So you were producing the videos?
Right.
They were doing a lot of them really fast, weren't
Yes. It was definitely high volume there. There was weekly series. There was branded content. There were what I would sort of call our tentpole type moments where we had some live streaming events around the award shows at the time, and also like we had a holiday gift guide that we produced. And then there was when I was there, a daily entertainment TV show called PopSugar Now that was on the Time TV Guide network. And then we had a live streaming event from the Oscars press bridge and the red carpet, and so there was a lot of things going on at PopSugar.
Fun. You were everywhere all the time.
Yes.
Now, PopSugar Now, is that the show that you were shooting like on the floor of the office? Like I remember it being an open concept where everybody's there with their computers and then there's a TV studio in the middle of it.
Yes. So PopSugar's offices, we had 2 small studio spaces and also an open floor plan. And there were small, in the corners, sort of shooting space that we would shoot some things for PopSugar Now, but then also some of our other online content as well.
So what's that like to be in an office where everyone's just sitting there working and you're shooting TV at the same time? Like, does that create kind of a whole different cultural dynamic?
It is, but people just got used to it.
So you just work quietly?
Yeah, people just worked quietly, typing away, and when we're about to roll, someone just says we're about to roll, and everyone just knows to be quiet, and then they start shooting. So it's similar to, I think, when you see news shows when they shoot with, the staff in the background working away at their computers. It's kind of the same idea.
So are the phones just on mute?
Well, it's interesting because at PopSugar, no one has desk phones. Everyone just has cell phones.
That is so modern.
It is. It's the new wave of the future.
Totally. So in a place like that, like is there a hierarchy? What's that work dynamic like?
I mean, it's a very collaborative environment. So a lot of people,
like I always wonder, while there's a new type of company doing a new type of work and kind of recreating the model, is it also creating a new way to work?
I think with PopSugar, and similar to, from what I understand from other new media companies that are different from the studios,
like a BuzzFeed,
there aren't as many. A lot of people are wearing multiple hats. So similar to BuzzFeed, like the producers at PopSugar are not just coming up with the concepts. They are coming up with concepts, figuring out who to cast, figuring out how the shoot day is gonna run, like what the shot list is gonna be, what do they need in order to create the videos. So in a lot of ways, they're also directing.
Do you hire a separate director?
No.
Uh-huh.
So it's a very lean crew, and they are also sitting with the editor to complete the video in post.
So they're doing the whole thing.
They're doing the whole thing, soup to nuts. And so it's I think it's for a producer or a creator, you can really put your stamp, your mark on a video.
Yeah.
Because you are so hands-on and involved. And I think also, PopSugar, like many of these new media companies, are trying to be more nimble and evolve as technology changes and different platforms come up. Like at one point, Vine was it, and then that kind of went away, and then people started to use Instagram a lot more, and then Snapchat has blown up since I've been at PopSugar, and so trying to figure out different ways to reach their consumers and audience, and trying to be on top of whatever the latest trends are.
Yeah, and you got to move quick. Because I knew a bunch of people had created their whole business on Vine, and that was their entire revenue stream, and then it's gone. You have to shift immediately.
Yeah, and you have to really pay attention to what these new platforms are, whether or not you think it's going to be around for a while, or if it's something that's just, here today, gone tomorrow.
And is your demographic going there?
Yeah, and is your demographic going there? That's correct.
Now, what were kind of the gender demographics at the new media companies?
Well, at PopSugar, it's at least the video. So PopSugar has a couple of different offices. Primary office is in San Francisco. LA is the office that has most of the video team, at least when I was there. A small office in New York, and I think a small office in London. And the demographic at the LA office was primarily women. There was a handful of men there, but 90% maybe women.
Wow.
And it kind of makes sense given it is a women's lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. And I get the impression that you've worked mostly among women your whole career.
Yeah, I mean, most of my immediate, I guess my direct reports have primarily been women, which I don't think I really thought about until you and I have been talking.
Because I keep asking, what's that like? So can you really compare and contrast, or what has been your experience having female bosses?
You know, I guess because I have to think about it, because I didn't think anything of it until you sort of asked about it, or it came up in a conversation we had. And so I think in general, like, I remember years ago, maybe like in college, someone told me that whoever you work with or for, or whether it's someone above you or below you, I think, you always sort of figure out and learn what works for you and what things you will take away from that experience and apply to how you do your job and how you interface with other people. Mm-hmm. So you take the good and the bad and figure out and pick and choose sort of what fits your style. And so I feel like regardless of if it's been men or women that I've worked with or for, I've kind of always kept that in mind, because you only, like, there's no book. I mean, there are books, I guess, out there, I should say. There's no book there's no book that tells you, but there are books that, so true. But, you kind of have to figure out what works for you. And so I think working with women, you sort of realize you kind of hear about some of the challenges that they've faced, mm-hmm. That can be applied to me, and how I work with people. But then there's something to be said of also having not necessarily worked under a lot of men, but worked with men and seeing how they work, mm-hmm. and realizing, everyone has different styles based on their experiences and possibly gender. So,
have you ever felt any obstacles at work because you were female?
I've been, I think, fortunate, unlike probably some friends that I know, that I haven't really felt like there was an obstacle because I was a woman. I feel like some of the obstacles have come from my not understanding or not knowing what I could advocate for myself.
Aha. That's interesting. So things like, did you negotiate salary? Have you negotiated promotions? Things like that?
Yeah, I think, as I've kind of gone on in my career and have met other people in my sphere and other colleagues and peers, have learned sort of what the standards are, quote unquote standards are in the side of the business that I'm a part of. And so as that understanding has grown, I've come to realize like what's possible in terms of my trajectory, in terms of growth and advancement, I guess.
That's interesting. So before, it may not have occurred to you to ask for certain things.
Right, because I didn't know what was possible and didn't think that it was appropriate or to ask other people like what they're getting. Mm-hmm. I think
that's so common.
I don't think that that's necessarily a female or male thing. Maybe more of a
the data would show it's a
female thing.
For sure. So do you think you were paid the same as the men around you?
Probably not. I think the other challenging part too is that I might be wrong, but in the entertainment business, creative executives tend to get paid more than production executives do. And so I definitely feel that there's that discrepancy. even though I feel like both positions contribute equally to content creation. But definitely do see that men have a tendency to get more compensation than female counterparts.
Well, and in your position, I imagine you hire a lot of people?
Yes.
Do you find that people negotiating with you when you're hiring them, do men and women behave differently? That you've noticed?
It's a really good question. I don't know if I've really paid attention to that.
Oh, you will now.
Now I will. I mean, I guess because a lot of the women that I've worked with, whether it's at companies or as a freelancer, like some of the women producers that I've worked with, I mean, they're pretty badass, and so
yeah, they are.
They don't take shit from anybody. So they're pretty tough negotiators themselves, and most of the time, some of the roles that I've hired for tend to be, you know, negotiated by agents as opposed to the people themselves. And honestly, some of my projects have been on the lower budget side, so it's usually a take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Type of negotiation.
There's not a lot of room.
No, there's not a lot of room. So now I'll have to pay a little bit more attention to that.
You're welcome.
Well, I do have to say, you know, now that I think about it, there was someone that I worked with a few years ago who was a woman, but she was kind of just starting out, and she wasn't necessarily advocating for herself. And I would sort of tell her, I'm like, I wasn't the one that I wasn't the one that was the keeper of the budget for our department, so I couldn't necessarily say what she could and couldn't get. But I did sort of tell her, look, you need to advocate, you need to know what you're worth and realize that you're great, and just ask.
So you weren't making the deal, but on the side, you were saying, hey, sister.
Yeah.
Ask for more.
Ask for more, because you never know. You know, if you don't ask, this is also a hard lesson for me, too. It's like, if you don't ask, like, there's no harm in asking.
Right. If you don't ask, you will not get it.
Yes, exactly.
If you ask, you might.
And you might. And, you know, the other thing, too, to realize is if it's not what you want and you're not getting, and there's no other upside for you, then be willing to walk away.
That's the hard one.
That's a hard one.
So I think we're always so grateful for the offer.
Right.
It's hard to walk away.
Right. And I'd be curious I wish I could be like a little bug on the shoulder of a guy when he's in good. Like, what are they thinking in their head? What, you know, like, is what I'm thinking and feeling at that moment similar to what a guy, like, I really would love to be in someone else's head.
Yeah. Do they feel the same way but are able to negotiate better, or are they really thinking about it differently?
Yeah. Like, are they just not thinking about it in the same way?
That's interesting, because we do talk a lot about their behavior, which is they say they're going to walk away in such a way that everyone believes them.
Right, but what are they actually thinking?
Are they at home nervous, like, oh my God, I hope they give it to me? Or are they really like, screw this?
Yeah. But I don't think we'll ever know unless, well, maybe.
Well, let's ask them.
Maybe like in 5 years. Oh yeah, or
Caller, you're on the line.
Yeah. That's your next podcast.
Let's talk to the men.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I just read that book, Women Don't Ask, and went to the night where the woman was talking about it, and the guy who teaches the book. And it's all about how women should negotiate with men, but there's not a lot of coaching for, or talking about how men are feeling.
Right.
Because we assume they just know the rules of the game.
Right. But
how do they know the rules of the game?
I don't know.
It's tribal.
Because maybe it's just genetically encoded. I don't know. But because I feel like the only way I've learned is over time, and with talking with other people and figuring out how they handle themselves in different situations. And unless they just wake up with it, I don't like.
They're born this way.
They're just born that way, right? They're like, ding, and you're.
It's probably deep conditioning from birth that people have actually studied. We just don't know what it is.
I guess so. And I think the other thing for me, because now that I think about it, like, I'm one of 3, I have 2 other sisters. So I've always grown up in a house household full of women.
Yeah.
And so I've never been necessarily, I mean, we were definitely, I mean, the youngest one, she's probably not going to listen to this, but the youngest one was definitely got away with a lot more.
I was going to say the favorite.
I was going to say the favorite.
The youngest ones always do get away with everything.
They do. They get away with murder. And
I can say that as a youngest child and as a mother.
Oh, there you go. And I was the oldest, so.
Oh, you had all the responsibility.
Yeah, none of the
perks.
None of the perks. But, you know, I guess that's why maybe I've, growing up, not necessarily realized the challenge, the difference in gender.
Yeah.
Because I've grown up in a household full of women where my father was outnumbered. And he's always been very vocal about that.
I mean, you just expected to go out and achieve. It wasn't go find some nice man to marry and take care of you.
Exactly. So.
It makes a difference.
It does. You know? It does, especially when there's not, I think, you know, had there been a boy in the family, I think it might have been a little bit different. Not necessarily from my parents, but maybe more from my grandparents, because they're a lot more progressive than I think most Asian grandparents would be. But I would think that there might have been a little bit more favoritism to a boy.
When the princess arrived.
Just because of the way that generation was raised. But because we were a household of girls, like, we were kind of all expected to do the same things.
Yeah.
You know?
Great. So you just went out and did it.
Yeah.
Okay, so from PopSugar, was there something in between that and Lionsgate?
Yeah, so I went from PopSugar to Mattel. Mattel was putting a little bit more focus on original online content, and so I was there working on primarily the Hot Wheels brand videos.
Not those Barbie ballerina videos, which I've watched ad nauseum in
No.
my living room?
Not the Barbie videos, but the Hot Wheels short form online videos.
And what was that like?
You know, it's interesting to be when I was at PopSugar and we worked on branded content. That definitely gave me one perspective of being on the outside of a company, and then at Mattel, I got the perspective of being inside a brand who was trying to make that shift into putting more resources towards online content. And I think what was interesting is that at the end of the day, similar to having what I saw on the PopSugar side, at the end of the day, brands ultimately are looking to create content that drives sales. Yeah. And which is exactly what commercials were, but now they're embracing the way that consumers are consuming content and thus finding out about brands and the products that they offer. And so, but ultimately they still need content to drive sales.
Yeah. So that's a very different focus.
Yes.
Because you have to be more than entertaining.
Yes. You have to be entertaining, and sometimes it also is challenging to be creative. You have to sometimes be more creative when your box is smaller. You know, you have to figure out how to utilize a product in a creative way whereby it's engaging to the viewer who is watching the video, but also sort of showcases the product.
While being very subtle and seamless. It's almost like we're back to the days of, in the middle of the scene, "Hi, honey, may I pour you a cup of Folgers?"
Yes.
Except not being that obvious.
Right. Yeah.
Which is great for creativity.
Exactly.
We have a renaissance of advertising.
Right? But, you know, I think when I was at PopSugar, there were definitely some brands that were more... There were some brands that were interested in advertising and creating content that was a little bit less on the nose about their product. But then there were other campaigns where they were specifically wanting you to be on the nose about their product. Yeah. But in a more creative way that wasn't just a commercial showcasing how XYZ product functions.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
It's really interesting.
They want the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
On a budget.
Because all I can think about is those Kleenex ads. And really all they have to do is show Kleenex at the end of it because you are in tears no matter what.
Right.
So that is just finding the story that's going to make everybody cry.
Right. But also like hits on whatever the brand objectives are for that quarter.
Yeah.
Like Kleenex that's more absorbent. I don't know. And how do you creatively show that?
Yeah, while hitting your demographic.
Right.
Like it's such a deep art.
Yes.
And it feels like it's production people going in doing this, not necessarily like the old-timey ad people.
Right.
So are they still at agencies?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the little that I've seen, the brands are still interfacing with agencies, and the agencies are the ones that, when I was at PopSugar, we interfaced more with the agencies directly than necessarily the client.
So they're still doing concept?
Yeah. But the concepting, when we were at PopSugar, a lot of the concepting for the creative would come from our producers.
Mm-hmm. So it's becoming a real hybrid skill.
Yeah. Because there would be an overall sort of arching campaign for the client with a theme or what have you, and then sometimes they would have some specific ideas, but most of the time not, and they had a vague idea, and then our producers would have to come up with a couple of concepts and then pitch it back to
So do something interesting within this theme that gets the point across.
Yes.
It sounds really fun.
It is, but I was always really impressed with the creativity that came out of PopSugar, because sometimes you would look at the client and the concept and be like, how are we gonna... And they would throw out a couple of ideas and the client loved it. And I'm like, those are really great ideas. I don't know where you guys pulled that out of, but...
And just endless ideas because it's every single day.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you doing at Lionsgate?
So Lionsgate's digital studios group is creating content for the millennial generation that, in an ideal world, is targeting a need that you don't necessarily see with the bigger features or in TV on a lower budget side. And primarily right now, our slate is feature-length content and some episodic.
Okay, so you're not like a digital arm that's complementing the TVs and film stuff that's happening as additional like marketing. You're doing specific content for digital distribution.
Correct. So our division has its own slate of projects that our creative team is developing. That's separate from the Lionsgate Motion Picture Group and the TV group. So on the TV side, our projects are at a much lower budget than the regular TV group, and our concepts may be a little bit more unconventional than what the TV group might be pursuing.
So it may be a different model, different demographic.
Yeah.
You're not looking for the next Orange is the New Black.
No.
To go to Netflix.
No. We have a partnership with Rocket Jump, which is a YouTube channel that was started by one of the principals in that company is Freddie Wong. And so some of our TV ideas we're developing with the Rocket Jump team and sort of is hitting more of their demo/audience.
Okay. And would you still do 30 or 60-minute episodes, or would you be doing like 2 to 5-minute episodes?
No, so our on this episodic side, we're focused on the more traditional half-hour or 60-minute content, because from a business perspective, for our division, it doesn't make sense. Lionsgate wouldn't be able to necessarily craft a business around 3 5-minute episodes, like short formats. No.
Yeah. They have a big overhead.
Yeah.
I imagine. Okay, so what's next for you? Do you have any announcements? Are you making any changes? So as I'm sure you can hear, this moment in the interview got a little bit awkward because at the time we recorded this, Jennie had already given notice at Lionsgate and was transitioning into a new position she had accepted. So we didn't really know how to say it, but here's the news.
Well, funny you should say that. I have recently started at Netflix.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
I feel like everyone's going to be working at Netflix
I feel
Pretty
like
soon.
They're taking over the world.
Everybody I know has either talked to Netflix or has already gone over to Netflix.
Yeah, I actually have a couple of other people that I know who are at Netflix who have recently joined or just been there for a relatively short period of time so far.
Which group are you in?
So I'll be in the independent film group.
Oh, great. Producing or acquiring?
Producing. I'll be one of the people sort of overseeing production on the indie film group's projects.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's getting a seat on a rocket ship.
It is, and apparently it's a very fast-moving rocket ship from what I understand.
From what I understand, it is. Those people are working fast and hard.
Yes.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Are you a success?
Wow, Julie, you ask hard questions.
I know, that's a really hard one. It's a hard one. I'll answer it for you if you can't do it.
No, I think I can answer that. So, for me, even when I started in this business after grad school, and I kind of saw the trajectory of some of my classmates and also the impression that I got while being at USC at the time about being super successful straight out of the gate. Meaning, like, by the time you were 30...
I love that arbitrary...
Or, you know, I mean,
goalpost.
you know, because Hollywood kind of it trades on a younger image.
Yeah.
And so that you needed to be sort of successful, quote unquote, by the time you were in your early 30s.
Well on your way.
Well on your way. But because I was in production, I realized that, as I think I said earlier, like, it really is a little bit of a trade school. Like, I couldn't have done the job that I do now straight out of school.
Sure.
Because it only comes with experience. As you work on more and more projects and you see more things, you learn every time. No matter what project that is or what company you're at, you're always going to learn something new. And to me, if I am still in this business when I'm 65 or 70, you know, to me that's success because I've been able to stick it out and learn and grow over time, and also continue to be relevant and change as the business has changed. So am I a success now? I'm on my way. I still think I have a lot to learn, but the fact that I'm still working in this industry, you know, 15 years out of grad school, to me that's success.
It's pretty good. What have you not accomplished yet that you want to?
I think it's not necessarily about my position or my career, but what I'm still learning and can say that I've gotten better at in the last few years is that I am better able to balance work and life.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yes.
How do you do it?
Well, I don't have a family. I don't have kids. But regardless of that, I still think, you know, finding that balance within yourself and not getting burnt out in this business is a challenge.
Yes.
So
speaking as an all or nothing sort of person.
Right. You know, and it's finding time for yourself, realizing that, you know, sitting on the couch on the weekend, not a bad thing, especially if you had a tough week at work.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I've been doing a lot of yoga in the last few years, which has helped a lot.
Do you have any hobbies?
Besides yoga? And so, actually, I spend a lot of time at yoga.
I think yoga is what keeps this town together.
Yes. I've definitely found more grounding, more centering, which I never would have thought. When I first started taking yoga, I used to think that it was a little crunchy, granola-y, hippie, a little, you know, too new agey for me necessarily. But my sisters were like, I think you will really like it. And lo and behold, I do. There's something about making time for yourself and knowing that you are important, I think is invaluable to hear. Yeah. And hearing it over and over again for the last couple of years has definitely, I think, made an impression on me, which I didn't think it would. So,
yoga wins.
Yoga wins.
Are you a badass?
Am I a badass? That's a really good question. Julie, you ask really hard questions.
You know, I asked that question to everyone, so you should have been prepared.
I told you I tried not to listen to too many of your podcasts so that I didn't get intimidated. So I think I'm really good at my job. I don't know if that qualifies as being a badass.
Well, what does it mean to you?
That is a really good, to me, like bad.
How does it sit with you? Because people have different impressions of it, which I think can color whether or not you want to own it.
I know, and that's why I think I don't want to own it necessarily.
Because what does it look like?
Because to me, like, I guess badass has a couple of different connotations to it. Mm-hmm. Badass is somebody who, I think I kick ass at my job. And honestly, it's taken me a number of years to become confident in that. As a badass, I've come to value that everyone has their own style of working with people and interacting with people, and what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for me. I'm not a yeller. I think I'm a really good listener, and I want to try to hear people and don't necessarily want to, I'd like to find a compromise if I can, you know?
Well, it sounds like if you hear badass as having kind of a hard edge,
right?
You don't have that hard edge.
That's right.
You're the nicest badass I've ever come across.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I'm a relatively patient, I feel like, person, and it takes a lot to push me over the edge. And I think when someone has pushed me over the edge, I make that very clear. But then that comes across then they know that they've sort of overstepped because it takes a lot.
Yeah, if you've upset Jennie Yamaki, you have really done something.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you ever feel like an imposter?
Yes.
What does that feel like?
I feel like, maybe imposter is not the right word, but what I sort of said earlier is I feel like I'm always learning. Mm-hmm. I'm not one to say that I know everything, because I can't. I'm definitely someone who will ask a question if I don't know. I'd like to be informed before I make a decision. I think I'm probably, quote unquote, less of an imposter than some people I've worked with before. So, there's definitely a lot of those that I worked with.
Oh, I can't wait to turn off the recorder.
Yes, that's going to have to be off the record. We'll have a couple more donuts and more coffee, and we can talk more about that.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Okay, I'm picking up what you're laying down, sister. I'm picking it up. What advice do you have for young women starting out?
My advice would be follow what your passion is.
Yes.
Follow what your passion is. Because life's too short. Advocate for yourself. Whether that's through your passion of what you're working on or the job that you have, but also don't be afraid about asking your other peers or friends, like, advice or what have they encountered, because everyone at some point is going through the same thing that you're going through. That's actually what's been great about having friends who work in the business, because they'll be honest with you about the challenges and tribulations that they've gone through. And sometimes it's surprising to me because you're not alone. Even though you may think, like I've thought sometimes, I'm like, oh, I'll ask somebody this question, a question about my career or like advice for something, and think that I'm asking something that for the first time, and come to find out so-and-so friends actually just gone through that like last week. And I'm like, really? So
we all think we're so original.
I know. And you find out really it's just part of life. So that would be my advice, is to follow your passion and never be afraid to advocate for yourself, most importantly. And also that as much as this sucks sometimes, the only person looking out for you is you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Jennie Yamaki.
You're welcome, Miss Julie.
You've been listening to The Other 50%, A Herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Jennie Yamaki for telling us her story. And special thanks to Jonathan Lucas for editing, Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review. And of course, on the website, theother50%.com, all spelled out, for added features, bios of our guests, pictures, the blog, the merchandise. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter at Other50% and Instagram at Other50% Podcast. And don't forget to check out The Other 50%, A Herstory of Tech. Thanks for listening. See you next time. You feel like you're being interviewed?
Yeah. Sorry.
Thought you knew what we were doing here.
No, I thought we were just having coffee.
It's the old bait and switch. Here, put this microphone on. Let's have a cup of coffee.